This is a spoiler warning. In this show, we'll be discussing Before the Flood. So if you haven't seen episode 4 of series 9, why haven't you seen it? Google it and click the iPlayer link. I'm Christel Dee, he's Luke Spillane, and welcome to The Fan Show. Joining us this week to discuss Before the Flood are Doctor Who fans and YouTubers Becky Zero and Jake Dudman. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So, Before the Flood, what were your favourite moments?
I mean, I loved the pre-titles, fourth wall breaking
opener
where the Doctor's talking to the camera. I thought that was really refreshing.
Yeah.
A new take on pre-titles.
Looking directly into your soul. Fantastic.
Yeah, controversial, looking straight down the lens.
Yeah, I don't know what other people thought of that, but for me it was really, it draws you in and you can really connect to what he's saying.
It's not the first time I think Doctor Who's broken the wall though, is it?
Yeah.
I think, I remember a long time ago Tom Baker broke the wall, sometimes for comedy, but no, it's quite personal. I like him talking to us.
Yeah, Tom Baker used to break it a few times. There was one moment where William Hartnell raised a glass of sherry or something to the camera and said, "Merry Christmas to everyone at home." My favourite moment was probably the scene where Cass was being followed by the ghosts. I thought was such a chilling moment in this episode. And for me, I really enjoyed it because it harked back to Under the Lake with the horror element of it. And just that sound design was just so chilling.
Yeah.
Like hearing that utter silence and just her breath was so, it really shivers down my spine, that scene.
I chose exactly the same moment as you, and for exactly the same reason as well, just the going from that just awful scraping of the hammer, the axe, and then going to this silence, and you really feel like you're there with her. Well, let's talk about that opener then, the cold open pre-titles with the Doctor talking directly to the camera, maybe talking to us, maybe talking to Clara, maybe it's her POV. Sandra says, "I liked it and I paused it the moment he asked to Google it to do exactly that." And Chris Lindsay says, "I loved it. I assumed he's talking to Clara at some earlier point and we were getting a POV as they refer to it later."
I think, like Becky said, it's really nice having the Doctor talk down the lens again. We haven't seen that since Tom Baker's comedy moments where he'd look at the camera and like Invasion of Time, he looks down the lens and says, "Oh, even my sonic screwdriver's not going to get me out of this." But I don't know, I found it very jarring. I found it kind of, it put me off a little bit. I liked going into the episode with something completely different, something really new. The Doctor just explaining something like at the beginning of Listen. But with that, it was him. I love the moments where he moles away in the TARDIS his own thoughts. It didn't really feel like that though. It felt like the Doctor was telling us something. Yeah. This is what's happening, which I found it a little jarring.
If it is about Clara's POV, I think it's quite effective in the way that it works as the last clip is him looking into the camera, I believe, at the end of the episode. So the way the story works and it's all about paradox loops, that could work quite nicely if at the end of the episode he's maybe that pre-titles could have been after that at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that's true.
So obviously that cold open then goes on to the electric guitar theme, which was amazing. That went down quite well online. Flair Spire says, "At first I thought it would fade out into the normal opening. Then it didn't and my mind temporarily exploded. That was awesome." And the Whovian the Jeff says, "Rock version rocks, I want it forever." So guys, did you like the guitar theme?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Much more louder and aggressive in a good way.
It suits the rock and roll Doctor that we currently have, especially after his opener in this series and with the guitar that he's having in every episode now. I thought it was really good.
Let's talk about Clara in this episode. Now, I personally was annoyed by Clara quite a bit. And the reason why is because, personally, I think she acts quite entitled in this episode. I think she makes it all about herself. And I don't think she's very likeable anymore. I think, what a privilege to travel in time and space. Yeah. And I don't think she treats the Doctor very well in this episode.
There was a moment in the Faraday cage as well where she was trying to get them to go outside and go and get the phone. And the way she was talking to them, it was me. Us, not us, it was me. And
Didn't she? Yeah.
I
need
that
to contact the Doctor, and then had to correct herself.
Yeah. I need to be safe.
I think I really like Toby Whithouse as a writer. I think it's really interesting how he's developed Clara. In the first scene, we see her with Lun. he asks her what she would say to someone who's scared, and it shows the side of the Doctor where travelling with him has obviously made her a better person because she can deal with people who are scared and try and make them feel better. And there's a really interesting contrast to where they're in the Faraday cage, and she doesn't hesitate twice to throw him out into the potential danger of where the ghosts are. So it's showing both sides, that this almost recklessness that she's developed from travelling with him.
She says on the phone to the Doctor, "Die with whoever comes after me, not with me." Well, we asked some fans if they thought this was harsh. Sandra says, "I don't think so, but it was quite emotional. It made me fear for the day the Doctor loses her." And Murderous Malice says, "If we were her, we wouldn't want to be the companion who gets stranded because the Doctor goes and dies."
I can understand why she's terrified. I don't think I would have said that, but I would have been saying anything just to get him to come back to rescue them, or rescue us.
It's a moment of desperation. She's desperate. So I think you can understand why, we sit back as an audience and see this kind of what we think is a selfish moment, but I can kind of understand that and appreciate that. But yeah, like the point of Clara, she has really changed, and she is becoming someone that we kind of not recognising anymore. There is always a danger with companions, in actually staying in the TARDIS for too long can really change you, and quite badly, because you basically become the Doctor, which, the Doctor's good at being the Doctor, but anyone else is kind of dangerous.
So we had lots of lovely characters set up in Under the Lake, but in Before the Flood, a lot of them get told to sit and wait. It becomes a lot more about the Doctor and the monster, and the characters become a little bit more disposable. Do you think it was a shame seeing this, and after such great characters were set up in part 1?
I think this second episode is very different to the first episode. A lot was set up in the beginning, the ghosts, the base, all of this. A great ensemble of characters. Like, we all knew who was who, what was going on. We all knew their names in the first episode, which sometimes you lose, especially from being a one-parter based Under Siege story. So there was so much set up that for this story to take a complete U-turn, we did lose a part of that, I felt, which was kind of sad.
I think it definitely needed the phone where the ghost takes the phone away, because otherwise they would just be like, it definitely brought interest. But there's quite a nice character development with all the love interest at the end. I think I liked seeing Cass and Lund get together, I think.
It was also nice to get to know Prentice as well in this episode, and he surprised me because I thought he'd be quite serious, but he was really giggly and comical and sweet, and so therefore when he becomes a ghost, it's really sad because you get quite attached to him. So that was a bit of a surprise for me.
Let's talk about the Fisher King. It's been a while since we've had a spacey-wacy alien. The Fisher King was played by Britain's tallest man, Nigel Fingleton, and voiced by Peter Serafinowicz. Marge Silbert says, "I loved it. It's a change from Daleks and Cybermen. Thus, the season so far is pretty good, a little scarier." And Sam says, "The Fisher King was spine-chillingly beautiful, from voice to overall design, but criminally underused."
I would have liked to have seen more screen time, because I felt like it was more him having a conversation and then him being washed away at the end. Although he was intimidating and he looked over the Doctor and you saw the Doctor getting scared, I would have liked to have seen a bit more confrontation, see him in action a bit more.
I thought the Fisher King was terrifying, looked amazing, like everything in these two episodes. I think the consistent thing across these two episodes is the design and the production. It's been produced wonderfully. So I thought everything about him looked great. Waist upwards. He had a bit of a dress on down below, but I loved all this bone stuff and this alien type mouth. I thought he looked great, but he was a bit immobile. I would have liked to have seen him doing more.
I was going to say, he had that weapon in his hand. We didn't really get to see him.
Yeah, he didn't.
In action.
He didn't really do anything with that. And basically the Doctor went, no, I've wiped off the instructions. And the Fisher King goes, "Oh no," and walks outside, has a look, and then goes, "Oh, he didn't. He lied to me." And then gets washed away. So I felt like for such a big monster to be built up, the ending was a bit...
His arms open though.
Yeah.
Because he put his arms up. Is he welcoming it? Like, okay, I'm going to die, go for it.
Yeah.
Or was he like, no?
I would have liked to have seen his face at that moment, maybe not behind, to see whether he was excited or why he died, or whether he was like, ah. But yeah.
I do wonder whether we needed an alien. I think it's nice to have a new alien. It's always nice to have a new alien. And I really did like the design of the Fisher King and how he looked and sounded. But I do wonder whether it was necessary, and because could it just be, maybe just the ship? Or maybe
Perhaps having him sort of adds to the complexity of the episode, and so might be more confusing for more casual viewers, because it's just another thing to think about.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about having an alien, but definitely it needed something, because otherwise it's just the Doctor and the characters running around a base. And although running is fantastic, it definitely needed something, but yeah. maybe the ghosts instead, perhaps.
Yeah. Maybe one just massive ghost.
One massive ghost.
Let's talk about the ending. Personally, I thought it wrapped up pretty quickly. It seemed like an easy win for the Doctor.
It's left me with lots of questions, a little bit frustrated. And the thing is, the thing about the glasses are awesome, but I feel like we're seeing them a little bit too much, and they're doing things that we're not always understanding. Like he put the glasses in that thing at the end, and all of a sudden he's just taking the message away. And I know there's probably a reason, but in my head I'm thinking, why didn't he do that earlier? It did wrap up quite fast.
Yeah, I found the ending. I actually really enjoy when a Doctor Who story has a nice TARDIS scene at the end where the companion goes, "What did happen again?" And the Doctor goes, "This is what happened, and I'm very clever." I actually really like that. It's very classic Who, which I really like. So I was quite happy with it. But yes, it happens very quickly. It's all of a sudden monster blown away and happens very quickly.
I like the scene between the Doctor and Bennett where they see Prentice and the Doctor has to say, we can't just go back and change time. I think it's very important to reinforce that to the audience, that actually you can't just go back and change everything. I think it's very important. Almost like Father's Day, the episode.
Yeah, totally,
I saw that as a reference to that because
Absolutely.
he says, because before you know it, you see somebody lying on a slab or something, and then you do really see, then you really do see ghosts. And I saw that as Pete Tyler lying on a slab dead, after being hit by a car, and then you really do see ghosts, which are the Reapers. I completely saw that as a Father's Day reference.
That's great. Yeah, I never picked that up.
I was like,
that's
there is one.
Yeah.
Let's go on to talking about the bootstrap paradox. Did anyone have to Google it?
I googled it.
Well, the Doctor did tell us to.
Well, Luke, are you happy to explain this for us?
The bootstrap.
Without saying wibbly wobbly.
Yeah. The bootstrap paradox is when past events are caused by future events, but those future events are only caused by past events. So a causal loop is the phrase here. A causal loop is what happens, which I think makes sense. It all makes sense. Right. That is a very simple way of seeing it. However, if you write out exactly what's happened because of what's happened because of what's happened, why did that ghost of the Doctor get created originally? Because the Doctor saw the ghost in his past, so it goes on and on. So it's a simple way of understanding it, right? But it is chicken and the egg.
Yeah. We've got some tweets in. George says, I understand the bootstrap paradox and I think it was genius. I wouldn't have understood it without the Beethoven analogy. And Elizabeth R says, I love it when the show delves into and really embraces the time travel part of it. I'd love to see more paradox types show up.
Imagine being a kid watching that and yes, being like, oh my, that was quite confusing. What was happening? But also, all these kids around the country now are working out and go around the world who are going, oh, now I get it. I know what that means. And they're understanding the theory of time travel. I love that.
And the reference at the end, going back to who composed Beethoven's Fifth, was very simple and it immediately took you back. It's not like they had to reiterate everything again at the end. It was already in your head, a bit like the words, the things on the spaceship. It's already in your head, so you know.
That's so true.
It's true, isn't it? Because you almost forget about it. Because it opens the episode, but then after the titles, you kind of forget that it's happened. And you're watching the episode unfold, and it's only until right at the end where the Doctor says Beethoven's Fifth.
Makes sense.
You go,
yeah, I hadn't thought of it. That's amazing. The coordinates were put in our head at the beginning of the episode, and we forgot about them, but we knew where we were going. So good.
That's actually really clever, yeah. Dave Kay says, very different feel to it, and a bit of a letdown, but that might be due to the superbness of the first. John says, two very different parts, but that's what made it great, I think. So I think we all liked last week's episode. I think the views from fans generally were positive.
It was very different. I think that's a great way of wording it. It's a two-hander. It's a game of two halves. It's not exactly a two-parter, but I still enjoyed it in its own right. It was its own time travel story. It was a separate story. It was, like I said, another Doctor Who story that caused this story.
I think it'd be interesting to see how the other, two-handers are, I think, in relation to one another.
New age of two parts, it's going to be very different,
it's very interesting, very interesting.
Stories that are related but aren't quite connected as they used to be. Gone are the days kind of like Aliens of London, World War III, where it's like, so Levine turn up, now what's going to happen? But it's two different stories but connected, so...
It's exciting. I think, Doctor Who constantly has to change, and I think...
Yeah.
But will we be prepared for it next time?
Yeah. A lot of people as well with Under the Lake didn't know it was going to be a two-parter, which I actually love that. I love that people got to the end and were like, oh, it's not the end, there's more. I want Doctor Who. I want people to feel like that every time Doctor Who finishes, just going, oh, what? There's more. I love that. So maybe more of that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I think this discussion has thrown up quite a lot of questions. Maybe we'll find out what those are as the series continues. And we'll leave you with the trailer to The Girl Who Died.
No, Vikings.
You're coming with us.
They are called the Maya.
The deadliest warrior race in the galaxy.
Yes, why?
I am a Viking. We will crush you on the field of battle.
Because I think this village just declared war on them.